All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Leadership, the podcast where leadership begins at the center. You. I'm Karie, and I believe in order to lead others effectively, we must first learn to lead ourselves. And this segment is called Beyond the Title, where we have conversations to explore raw, unscripted, behind the scenes stories of people who are discovering their leadership and what that means to them. They will share practices, insights, and tools to help you stay centered, resilient, and ready to empower those in your care. While leadership isn't a role, it is a choice, and it starts with showing up for yourself. So let's dive in. So I am super excited today that we are being joined by my friend Shelby. And
Hello.
Shelby and I have gotten to know each other over the last few years. We do similar work and we hang out in the same network of people
Yeah.
and sharing different things. So, welcome, Shelby.
Hey, Carrie. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. And
Oh.
I start every conversation with what lights your fire?
What lights my fire? Connection lights my fire. And I am a super connector in terms of I'm a super connector. We'll just put a period after that. So that is people and animals and I not to get too woo-woo too fast, plants. I really enjoy, I love connecting. I don't know. I feel like that's where my curiosity lives. I think that other people are infinitely fascinating. Sort of how the world works and comes together. Connection is like everything to me.
Yeah. So, looking back, where do you feel like your connection, like that passion for connection started for you?
I mean, golly, it's this is like could even get into like a nature versus nurture science
Yeah.
conversation, but like,
Yeah.
I'm the youngest of six kids, and I grew up in Sioux City, Iowa. And I also grew up in a neighborhood where there were no other families that looked like our family. In terms of
Mhm.
that, we were the only Black family in our neighborhood.
Mhm.
And then having as I refer to them, the beautiful umbrella of my older siblings, they weathered a lot of the sort of initial feeling out of being different. And so for me, connection has always equaled survival, right? Like
Mm,
it's to survive. It's not just to survive. I love doing it, but it's a good survival skill that if you can connect
mhm.
with other people and meet people where they're at, and it's just one of the most humanizing things that exists in the world. And that was very much to my benefit, even as a baby. I think I was anyway, whatever. I'm told that I was a friendly baby, but I was also the kid that like I went and hung out with my World War II vet neighbors, right? Like
Yeah.
Mr. Bradbury. I remember, like he passed away when I was maybe 5 years old, but I have tons of memories of like sitting on the front porch and him telling me about, being in World War II and yeah, so I learned that from a really young age with again all my siblings and my parents. Yeah, and I also learned to do that verbally. I talk a lot. Get
Yeah.
that from my dad. Yeah. So,
So just kind of growing up, there's so many things we can
uh
explore. Um, uh, just growing up in Sioux City, let's talk a little bit about that. You and I are from Iowa,
yeah,
very rural parts of Iowa, very
yeah,
farm country, really kind of conservative. Tell me a little bit about growing up in Sioux City. What was that experience
sure.
like?
Yeah, so just for I don't know, for point of reference, right? I was born in 1984. So that means growing up in Sioux City in the 80s and the 90s. And really, like my folks worked really, really hard. So my dad was an engineer on the railroad for Burlington Northern Santa Fe. I and Oh, okay. So yeah, my dad engineer, and then my mom was a nurse, and she became a nurse when I was a baby. She went to actually after having me, she started surge tech school at Western Iowa Tech. And then she went on to get her nursing degree, her master's. And then she has two masters as well while raising six kids. And growing up in Sioux City again. I had this lovely umbrella of all my siblings. So by the time that I came along, everybody was like, "Oh, she's a Pierce kid. She's fine."
Mm,
And that gave me such a sense of, I mean, hindsight, I look and I'm like, oh, I walked the world with such a sense of security. Like
yeah.
I knew I was wanted. There's this story of when I was born, my mom has told me that like she asked all five of my siblings if they wanted to have another baby. And like everybody was like, yeah.
Yes,
That's
we
still
do.
debatable for my brother next to me in age. I think he's still angry that I took the youngest role. But like I just really had a lot of stability in the world that I lived in. And from a really young age, I had this like, I don't know, I think there's a lot of pressures that exist in this part of the world. I think Sioux City can be a difficult place to move to. I think it's a
Mhm.
difficult community to like get access to people. And so I've always navigated through this. We grew up in the same house. It was really important to my folks to like so anyway, so from the time that I was born until I was in college, my parents had the
Yeah.
same house, 1020 South
Yeah.
Mulberry Street. And
Yeah.
I just walked this world with a sense of not only do I belong, and that was sort of unshakable, but also that I like other people belonged as
Hmm.
well, right? And that
Hmm.
I think that was looking back, I think it was different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know too, and in my experience, I went to two different schools growing up. I moved in
Hmm.
fifth grade, which I think is a really hard time
Hard
to
time.
move.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, being in a rural area where class sizes are small, people
Hmm.
know everyone. I mean, I went from moving to a class size that was 20 to a class size that was like 45 to a graduating class that was like 69, right? But
Yeah.
just the and I didn't move very far. I mean, I moved, 50 miles, but for me it felt like 4 hours away. Like it was
Yeah.
just
It's like a
so
world away.
distant. Yes,
Yeah.
to try and fit in. And I think there's groups very young that are kind of established that, and I'm the
Yeah.
oldest sibling. So I was kind of the one,
Hmm.
paving the way. And my mom was a librarian at the school.
Oh,
Um,
fun.
Now I got kicked out, so it wasn't great. Because I was in that stage of I don't want my mom in school, so I'm gonna
Mm.
be, I'm gonna kind of push back and be kind of a rebel and get in trouble. And yeah, I was banned from the library. So,
Uh-oh.
but you know, but you had to find yourself. I
Yeah.
think that was really hard for me, is just to finding out who I was, and like I said, how I felt like I belonged, or I felt loved and supported, but
Mhm.
discovering that belonging, I think, was hard, especially at
Yeah.
that age.
Yeah.
Um, and I know that, one advantage of rural Iowa and a small community is I think there's a lot of great people who influence or who are great guides for us. So just kind of, I
Hmm.
want to talk to you, like, maybe who are some people in your life growing up that really were influential in guiding you as you,
Sure.
yeah, on your journey.
Yeah. Well, I think very first things are like starting with family. Both of my parents were incredible guides, and especially because they were, again, they chose to do something the way and where they raised us. Oh, also, hold on one second. Side note, sidebar. I when you're saying that rural Iowa, I have learned that I grew up in the city in
Oh
Sioux
yeah,
City, and right, I'm a city
you're
girl.
at a stoplight.
Oh, we have many, right? Sioux City's like 98,000 people. And I always thought that I was from like rural Iowa because, I went to
Yeah,
the fair and, um, but then in a class, we had somebody bring in these little, farm equipment, models and
yeah.
asked us, what are these things? And we were all like, a combine. And they were like, no.
No,
There,
there's more than one.
I knew a combine and a tractor, and I was like, "Oh, there's something totally different
Yeah,
going on
yeah,
out in the country." And like, and mad pride about it too, right? Like, so I can't pretend and pose like I'm actually in super rural space because we're kind of not. But
yeah, yeah,
anyway, okay, so people who influenced me. I think from the very onset, like my parents were choosing to do things that were pretty countercultural. Also, my folks were both married prior, and so they brought their five children. They knew each other for 6 months and brought their five children together as one family, which
Yeah.
just wasn't being done at the time. Like,
Yeah.
yes, the Brady Bunch existed, but like the blending of families was there just wasn't precedence for that. And then also like regardless of like where we lived, like my parents are such strong individuals, in each of their ways. Like my dad, for example, he would get up, like when he was home, he would get up and go rollerblading down Morningside Avenue with ski poles, right? Like this is a great workout. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic workout. Nobody was doing that. Nobody
No,
was doing that. My dad had like a slide board in the basement. So like to skate ski, and we did cross country skiing, and my dad rode his bike across the United States in 1988. Like
that's amazing.
it, right, like the whole just being who you are in the world. Um that first started with my folks for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. And then after that, I think teachers and family friends. I spent a lot of time out. There's a curveball. I spent a ton of time out in the woods as a kid.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
yeah, a ton of time. I'm so glad my cat is getting in on our conversation, by the way. If
But I
anybody see,
think
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. No, I was
Mm-mm,
say I think that that probably plays into your love, your love for nature. I think that's always
absolutely,
been part of who you are
for
and
sure,
where you find your peace or, whatever it is
for
for
sure.
that. There's power in that. And um I know on calls that we have had um where we've been in groups and we have a check-in question, where do you like to spend your time? I know that yours is nature.
Yeah.
We often have little things like that or plants or
Hmm.
something that brings you joy. Yeah. So as you've gone through your journey, where were some things what has led you to where you are today? First of all, tell us a little bit about what you do and then what has led you to where you are today.
Sure, sure. So, what I do for work is so I have my own business, Pierce Porter Facilitation, and I am a full-time facilitator. I also tr am train top methods. Um, and man, the way that I got to where I'm at, really, truly, like everything has led to this particular time of my life and finding this role in the world that I just love and feel really made for. Okay, and so how I came to that and found that was that I was really fortunate to serve on a really great board here in Sioux City, and we were doing some strategic visioning. So strategic visioning, and there we hired a facilitator. I should say it was my first year on the board, so it's like the leadership hired a facilitator to come in and do that for us. And it was Deb Burnite, who
Yeah.
you know Deb.
Yeah, I know it does.
Yeah, so Deb's here in Sioux City, and I get into this room, and there is this beautiful like purple wall that's hung up. Turns out it's called a sticky wall.
Yeah.
And when we were doing that visioning, I was like, what is this? Because this is what I was born to do. Like at the time, I was working for an investment advisory firm. I was the owner's executive assistant, and um yeah, when I encountered that, so I have always nerdily loved meetings. I love meetings. Like middle school, I like loved Bible study because it was a
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah.
Because it was a meeting. Because we had an objective, we had things
Yes.
to read over, and like then we were going to discuss about it. I've just always loved that. And so when I encountered Deb and her style of facilitation, like the consensus building, I was like, that's the thing I was made to do.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
really up until that point, I felt like I had been going through life. I think I was maybe 34 years old at the time. It hasn't been that long. That was 2019.
Yeah.
Um, and I have always been going through life sensing my way through of like what is of interest to me at this moment. So I've got my undergrad is in social science. I have a degree in social science with an emphasis in urban studies. Right out of college, I wanted to go teach English in South Korea. Uh, but instead went and nannied for my sister and
Mm.
watched my niece and nephew and worked at Starbucks. And really long story short, I have done such a variety of jobs, right? So I've been, again, a shift lead at Starbucks. I was an AmeriCorps Vista for our local Human Rights Commission. After that, I went into dentistry. I was, mhm, I was a dental,
Nice.
yeah, I was a dental assistant, and then went on to be like to run the dental assisting office, which we were a very large office. Learned a ton, ran the dental assisting school at that office, and then I went into this investment advisory firm. Okay, so all of this has just gave me such a wide background of
Mhm.
the ways people need to come together to communicate and create and plan together. And so right away when I met Deb at that meeting, I was like, what is this? I
Yeah.
want all of it. And she was like, okay, okay, okay. Well, I teach a course and it's in July and take the course first and then see what you think. And I was like, okay. So I go and I take the course and like, our courses start at like 8:30, so they're like
Yep.
8:30 to 5. At like 11 a.m., 10:30 a.m. I was like, no, yeah, this is the thing. This is the thing. And like, will you be my mentor? And can I follow you around like a puppy? And Deb was like, sure. And I was like, no, no, I mean it. Like I was very intense
I
about it.
I don't know what happens in Deb's agenda around 11 o'clock
Right.
because
Have you had a
that
similar
she
experience?
that was the exact same experience that I had. She
Yeah.
was the first person I took that course from, and that was about the time too where I'd worked in HR and different companies, and I was like, oh, where's this been my
Yes.
whole life? This is what I've been looking for.
Yeah.
This is really what it takes to have people have this conversation. And I think
Yeah.
you just really hit on that is that, one of the things that we really talk about is that our experiences are really important, right? And we all have
Hmm.
different experiences. We all walk through life differently. We can
Yeah.
live in the same household, we can be in the same room and have a totally different experience.
Yeah.
And what our process does is to help us slow our thinking patterns down in order to understand another's perspective. What did
Yes.
you see that I didn't see? What
Ooh.
did you experience that I didn't experience? And one of the things that you and I were kind of talking as we were prepping for this is we were really talking about, words mean different things to different people. And
Yeah.
those meanings of words mean different things based on our experiences. And I think this is where we get into trouble in communication is that we assume everybody looks at a word the same or has the same
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have we don't have the same experience. You and I
Mm-mm.
don't have the same experience
Mm-mm.
even though we do the same kind of work.
Right.
And we were talking about the word leadership.
Yeah.
So let's dig into that. So when you
Yeah.
hear the word leadership, what comes to mind for you? What pops up?
Oh, I viscerally recoil
Yeah.
from the word leadership. And there's reasons for this. So let me just share a little bit about what my background and experience has been with leadership. So
Yeah.
coming up, growing up, I like sixth grade ran for student council, right? I was on student council the entire time that I was in middle school and high school. And at sixth grade, I won the citizenship award. So the space to like be amongst my peers and the willing, okay, let's just be honest. I liked the meetings.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, yeah, like get together and like plan for our school. I'm
Count me
in.
in.
Like when I was thinking about like running for student council, it wasn't a popularity contest for
Right.
me. It was like, I like getting together and talking about what do we want? We want a pop machine? Great, let's get a pop machine. I like organizing and things like that. And I'm like, I want the things my peers want, and I also want what I want, right? Like it's anyway. So that's been a very natural space for me. And so with that, I was on Mayor's Youth Commission and actually it was the first generation of Sioux City's Mayor's Youth Commission that's like, I don't know,
Yeah.
25, 30 years old
Oh,
now.
that's amazing.
I know. Anyway, and one of Deb's best friends started, which is funny because we've just been around each other but never met. Anyway, and then when I went to college, I went to Colorado Christian University out in Denver, and they had a leadership program, and I was part of their leadership program, which is, what taught me how to like ask for a mentor and to be focused and directed about things. Okay, so why do I recoil to leadership? Because, I've clearly been in the settings where it's like official, you're a leader.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do that because my current experience of it, I realize I think there's been a lot of gatekeeping that's happened. And
Mm,
this is like I think specific to where that's not true everywhere. But for
right.
me and my experience and where I came up, leadership became the thing that defined whether a person was worth your time or not. And
Mm.
I there's something in me that likes the idea of that sets me on fire. Like this could become a real what grinds my gears session.
Right, right. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so that piece and again, demographics and dynamics, right? So I'm multiracial. I'm Black, white, Native American. And for all intents and purposes, in my community, we're a Black family. And being in a mostly white environment and having people constantly scan you for whether or not you're worth their time.
Hmm.
Ooh, I can feel it,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Hmm.
because every person matters. Every person has a story. Every person has dignity. And leadership, is it all, of course, it's important, but leadership doesn't exist without community. And I even hate to say the word followers, right? Because it's so binary and it's so insufficient for what it is, for how we navigate the world. And I just found it to be a really limiting term. And people mean so many different things when they say it, which is also why I'm not like when people when people say it, I'm not like, oh, yes,
I'm not, no, I'm not going on your leadership podcast. What's wrong
I
with you?
you, which I didn't do, right? Because I
Yep.
understand, like we most definitely have had different relationships to
Yes.
this word, but
Yes.
the substance of what gets us to loving this thing that we're talking about, whatever we call it, that we have the same, that we have in
Yes.
contact or in
Yes.
common. And I do want to say that I had a really redemptive experience with leadership this spring. I
Okay.
had a group that I got to facilitate with that was an all Indigenous group, and they had so strategically built out their departments with people according to their strengths. And it
Mm-hmm.
was the first time I relaxed into this space where I understood the word in a way that was like, oh, there's strategy with this.
Yes.
Like getting the people who understand emergency services and in leadership in that to be able to think expansively and big and support the people who have to run things.
Yeah.
That is incredible, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
this word continues to morph in my life. I still haven't come up with a good synonym for
I
it.
I would love to brainstorm that because I have felt that in my life as well. I've just feeling unworthy in spaces that I was. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't have a 4-year college degree.
Yeah.
I went to business school. I have a diploma.
That's
I've read
sufficient.
sufficient, right?
Yeah.
But when you work in areas of where people have
Hmm.
degrees, right, and then they're looking at you upon that,
Yeah.
I'd have to say that almost every job that I've had, I've not really been qualified for, but I'm a good talker and I can hey, I can convince you that this is
Yeah.
going to be a great idea. And I love the challenge. Like I'm inspired by the challenge. I want to do it. I want to figure it out. I want to, I'm competitive with myself in
I
that
love
space.
that.
And so, my journey in the last 2 years has really been internally about how do I lead myself? Like, how do I
Yeah.
prepare my mind? How do I show up knowing I'm worthy, knowing that I'm more than worthy, knowing
Yeah.
that I have something to offer, and being brave to step into spaces to share that, but then also creating this space that is welcoming to others to do the same.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Love
I
that.
love that story too. But this is again, this is the heart of what we do,
Yeah.
because when, like you said, we could have very easily had an argument, and you say, "I'm not going to be on your podcast because I don't believe in what you're doing." And you never would have done that. But
Yeah.
this is in
What are
the
you
real
trying to see if
world,
I'm part of the club
right?
or not,
Right?
Karie?
Yeah, yeah. But this is what we do in our world. Like
Mhm.
that one word would have stopped us from having a conversation. And then, like you said, we get in here, we have this conversation, we talk about what that word means. I hear your experience and I can relate to your experience. And at the core of it, we want the exact same thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's powerful.
Absolutely. And nobody wants to, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody who wants to die on the hill of the word leadership. It's not me.
Not me.
It's
I,
not me.
something
I,
that I say in class often. That's like, I'm not tattooing that on my arm, right? Like
that's
I'll live with
right.
it. I'll live with it. I get what you're trying to say. It's not great for me. I'm not going to tattoo it on my arm.
I'm not tattooing it on my arm. That's right. And that's what one of the things that I think, even going back to one of the earlier questions that you asked about, like what were the fundamental people or fundamental things, like I feel like in my family, the treading the path, like there was never I don't know, take this with a grain of salt, but to me, there was never the luxury to assume, to make assumptions that like everyone was the same because we were so different, right? Like
Mm,
I
mm,
knew the
yeah.
integrity of my own household and my own family, and like that we, I realized that like most of America watched the Cosby Show, but like I've had friends who are like white friends who are like, "Do you have relatives who are blacker than you?" And I'm like, "I don't know what it means." And also like there's these things that are like, because as we try to make sense of the world, like our nuclear family, every nuclear family has its own culture, right? Like it
Yes.
has these things that's
Yes.
like, we can believe all we want that like we're all raised the same, but we're not.
We're
Just
not.
as much as individuals aren't the same. And I think that's a really, really beautiful thing and something to be really curious about and to, again, the work that we do, right? Draw the strength out of it, right? Like
Yeah.
harvest, like not even like just put into use the things that give us life. And I don't know, let's live in that world.
I think I love that point about it really being looking at it from a strength-based lens because I think even, some conversations that I've had with my brother growing up, he's younger than me. And so my view was always like he got everything, he was never in trouble. Like, okay, so I tied him to a chair once, but whatever. Like,
My sisters let me go in my stroller once. Like
yeah.
they were trying to run down and get me and they lost me on a hill.
But
They
I
still
think
apologize. It's fine.
exactly, exactly. But I think our parents even subconsciously didn't discipline us necessarily in the same way because it
Yeah.
really, we were different people,
And your different birth order, right?
a
They
different
were
birth
learning
order.
as they were doing it. I totally
Yes.
got the best version of my parents. I will
Yes.
100% confess it. And I've done a lot of babysitting of those 13 nieces and nephews to make up for it. I 100% got the best end of the stick.
Yeah. Yeah. But I
But
think as we look at, in the work that we do and that communication, that connection, that collaboration with people
mm,
and treating people as people, not as a box, right? Like
yeah.
I white Irish, so this is I fit in this box and everybody is like me. Or
Uh, yeah.
whatever that box, that doesn't exist,
Yeah.
right? And treating people like as human beings and really leaning into and understanding one's strength. And I
Yeah.
think understanding it for yourself and being able to communicate it, but then being able to recognize it in someone
Yeah.
else. And because you have a strength that I don't, not at all being that I'm not enough in that because I
Yeah.
carry something that is different.
Exactly. And that's a good thing to touch on, Carrie, because the activation of intimidation, right? Like when I
Yeah.
assume I've felt
Yeah.
it, right? Like
Yeah.
I know a really lovely lovely person who is a boundaries coach, and she always starts with what's called right sizing, right? That realizing that in the world we all have circles and all of our circles are exactly the same size. Exactly the same size. So understanding that my circle's not bigger than your
Mm.
circle's not bigger than my circle. But when we get activated, right? Like when we're intimidated, we feel intimidated. We get small because we think they're big. We think their circle's bigger than our circle, so our circle feels little.
Yeah.
Or sometimes like when we're like mad and we want to get our way, we make ourselves big and we like our
Mm.
circles get really big and people get small around us. They feel intimidated, right? And
Yeah.
just how important it is to take a breath and right size and like honor my circle's the same cycle size as your circle. And we
Yeah.
bring, there's like a different party going on in those
Yeah. Yeah.
circles. And like one of the things I love about the work that we do with technology of participation with top methods is in consensus building, we talk about like everybody having a piece of the puzzle, like how
Hmm.
puzzle pieces obviously are not the same shape, but they like fit together. And the concept of gestalting, right? Of
Yeah.
taking these pieces, combining them, and the whole being something greater than what the sum of the pieces are. That is magic to me. I could just bawl right now.
Right.
It's
And
just,
I think it's so you and I again had kind of the one experience that we did have shared is Deb and our immediate fall in love
yeah,
with what we do, right?
yeah,
And that it is so needed in every industry in the world right now, but yet nobody
yeah,
knows that they don't have it, right? And there is just something, like I said, magical about not only seeing those pieces come together, but not feeling like not knowing everything, not having all the answers, right? People
yeah.
feel that people think it's a weakness, right? Like I have to, if even if I don't know, I need to make something up, or
Mm,
I need to get louder. Or like you said, my bubble needs to get bigger so that people
yeah,
don't know that I don't know, rather than kind of holding
yeah,
back and owning and saying, yeah, I would love to learn from that. I want to hear from you and learn more about what you're bringing here to the table, or the
yeah,
strengths that you have, or the experiences that you can share
yeah.
with me. So,
Yeah, yeah, yes, I totally resonate with that. And also, what's coming up for me, and I want to point out that I think is really important, is that it is important to honor the part of you that thinks that has to have the answer all the time. Not to
yeah.
say you're wrong, like that's not how it has to be. You have to be curious. Uh, Understanding, thinking, believing that you have to have the right answer. There's a reason people do that. They
Hmm.
have been
Hmm.
trained societally. Obviously, none of us do everything right all the time. Let's also back up. Like adolescence is super messy, right? Like
Yes.
kids, like
Yes.
grade school, middle school, they don't know. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know like then like when bullying comes up, when I'm better than you, people are trying to figure these things out. And not that I don't believe that there's malicious intent out there. There absolutely is. But every person has survival instincts and they have these
Yes.
things in place for reasons. And there are
Yes.
times when people's lives are on the line over these sorts of things. And taking that moment to go, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You're just trying to keep me alive.
Yeah.
And also, nobody's life is on the line right now.
Yeah.
So let's just let that rest for a second and
Yeah.
just be curious about that's what I have to do for myself because I know I actually have been I mentioned that I have a boundaries coach. And my boundaries coach also specializes in generational and ancestral trauma. So we delve into this space of understanding that I've been very aware that I come from enslaved people, which happy
Yes.
Juneteenth today, everybody.
Yes.
Happy
Yes.
Juneteenth.
Yes.
But that's definitely it's a very proud part of my family legacy. And I find myself having these responses and reactions that having to have the right answer thing. There were times in that I there are times in my genetic history when people had to give the right answers and their lives were at stake,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There is a part of we talk about epigenetics a lot, like
Yeah.
and that's just the study of like how trauma passes generationally, right? That they tested mice and they shocked the mice when they gave them a treat. And suddenly, this generation of mice was like, I don't want the treat, right? I don't want the treat. And then when they had babies, the babies wouldn't eat the treat. And then the babies' babies wouldn't eat the treat, even though there was no shock that was being
Right.
given. They kept it and they held it. And so this is how we talk about this in this sort of trauma therapy setting. And that piece, when my instincts rear up, that I have to have the answer, there's absolutely old history inside of there that is connected to
Yeah.
survival and like so important to say, thank you. Thank you. Success. I'm alive.
Yes. Oh,
And right. And also it's okay. We can let that go for now. Because in really surveying your setting and because that's another thing. It's not safe everywhere, right? There
no.
are, yeah, institutions, organizations, high academia can be that way. And
Yes.
again, in the work we do, right? With those clients, I always got to tell them I'm not a content expert, right? I
Yeah.
I know process. I'm here to take y'all on a journey. You're the experts. Because otherwise, if they want to spar, They
It's
want
my
to keep,
favorite role. I love showing up and being like, I know nothing,
yes, right?
but I pay attention to you. Like I'm paying attention to
Oh, I
you as
love
human
that.
beings. I'm watching how you're interacting. I'm seeing the things on your face. I'm going to pick up the pace
Yeah.
or slow it down based on how you're responding to what you're talking about.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that because I think I've been I worked in I did some prevention work for a while. And we worked on, substance use disorder, mental health awareness, drug endangered children. And,
Mm.
every time I was at a conference where, it was really about that generational trauma was so it was so intriguing to me and to see, like you said, the things that are carried and passed and the DNA that shifts inside of us when something has happened that continues to
Yeah.
get carried on. And we don't necessarily know about it, so we're not acknowledging it or understanding the impact or influence that it has in our lives. And
Yeah.
so, thank you for sharing that. And I hope others who are listening will dig into that and
Mm.
learn more about it because
Yeah.
it's so interesting. Um,
Interesting and liberating, right?
oh,
To actually be able to, I mean, because otherwise, my husband and I, we often call these things like Scooby-Doos, and did you remember like the cartoon
yes,
Scooby-Doo, right?
yes,
And like, there's always a point in the episode where like Scooby gets like a white sheet on him, and he's running around because he's freaked out because he's under a sheet,
yes.
but like everybody else is like, "Ghost!" And they're like running away from him. And then eventually it gets pulled off and it's like, oh, it's just
It's
Scoob.
just Scoob.
It's just
Wow.
Scoob, right? And like this is how we think about these sorts of things. Like there are things that can come up that drive the bus, right? That make you feel like you're not enough, that make you feel like you have to have all of the answers. Just slowing it down to go, what's what's under the
Where does that come from?
what's under the
Yeah,
sheet? And maybe it is
yeah,
scary and you need to put it back down. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
But taking
Have
that time.
you have you read the Four Agreements?
I have dabbled. I
Okay.
think I listened to it as an audiobook.
Yeah.
But tell me what's coming up for you. I'm aware
Yeah,
of it.
as we were talking about that, I know when I first joined the Top Network, it was a book that people were talking about, and I was like, yeah,
Hmm.
whatever. I'm not gonna read it. But I did download it. It had come up on my Audible, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, as a recommendation. I was like, I'll download it. And it was a 2.5 hour audio. I had a 4.5 hour drive. I was like, okay, well, this is perfect. I'll listen to it.
Yeah, let's do it.
But it talks about that. It kind of talks about how, when you kind of talked about your bubble, that we're all kind of living in our own space and we're all living life according to rules and agreements that we didn't agree to, right?
Yeah.
So we're handed down from, religion or church or family or society, whatever that is, and some of them
Yeah.
good, right? Some of them to protect us,
Absolutely.
right? But some of them no longer serve us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't really know why we continue to live in them. So we just do it, right? It just kind
Yeah.
of this is how we know how to do it. This is the pathway that's been created and we
Yeah.
just continue to follow that without kind of like you said pausing and asking ourselves and reflecting like what is behind that curtain? Why am I responding to this? Is this still important to me? Is this still
Yeah.
serving the purpose that it once served or
Yeah.
is this an agreement that I no longer have to follow?
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
it's been a cool book for
Mm.
me, in my kind of personal journey. Yeah.
I'll pick
So
it back up because I
yeah.
also remember it because there's four agreements. Oh, pop
Hmm.
quiz. What are the
Yeah.
four
Oh,
agreements?
wow, agreements. Be impeccable with your word.
Okay.
That's the first one, which that one, really stood out to me and it's really, really hard. One of them is, do your best. Is something, the other one is something kind of around um, not necessarily caring what other people think about you,
Mm.
right? Like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
I can't remember the fourth one,
Okay.
so I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. That's great. As I Google it.
As you Google it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Give
yeah,
me the
yeah.
answer. I don't have a
Um,
producer yet. My YouTube channel hasn't have isn't funded where I have a producer on the side that's looking up all this stuff for us.
oh, that's right. I can be your producer. It's fine. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally.
Personal. There it
Ooh,
is.
see, that's the leadership conversation again, right?
Mm,
Um, don't make assumptions. Yeah.
yeah.
Always do your best.
Always do your best.
Always do your best. Yep. Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Where to now, Carrie?
Wow. I try and keep these at 30 minutes and we're at 30 minutes.
Oh, look
Isn't that
at
crazy?
that. Yeah. Yeah.
That goes so fast.
Yeah.
But I hope this is the one of many conversations that we
I love
continue to
that.
have and to share our experiences. And yeah, I love learning from you. You are somebody that inspires me every time I show up to those meetings because you can tell that you have been living your life leading meetings because you
Oh,
are so great at keeping and being intentional and the purpose.
thank
And
you.
I love the work that you do. So
Thank you. And that
yeah,
is mutual. That is mutual. I'm so glad that our paths have crossed and that we've gotten to work together and that we'll be able to work together more. I'm excited to train
yes.
together someday.
Let's do it. I want to see it
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. And everyone else, stay tuned for our next episode.